Hello and welcome to my channel. So as you can see, we're going to talk a little bit about some processed foods to avoid as we are all getting into our new year here, and many of us may be working through some health goals and setting some targets and strategies and trying to figure out what works best for us, for our bodies, and just overall for our well-being. And so this is definitely a subject that I'd like to address today because it comes up quite a bit in my practice. And I like to provide some coaching strategies and some information for people who desire to incorporate these things into their health goals. So before I get into today's video, let me introduce myself. My name is Nicole LaShawn, and I am a nurse practitioner with a background in family medicine. Here on this channel, I help Black women ages 40 and up to create the life that they desire to live rather than the one that has been assigned to them. And I'm sure that you probably know, but as a Black woman over 40, the life that has been assigned to us is not one that revolves around health and wellness. It's one of illness and chronic disease and chronic pain and autoimmune conditions and lack of access to healthcare and lack of access to resources and lack of willingness for our healthcare system to provide us with the necessary tools in order to be successful. So my goal here on this channel is to help provide education and information and tools and coaching and resources to help our community thrive so that we can be the best that we can, especially as we age, where we are starting to see some of the impact and the effect of these things, while at the same time we still have opportunity and time, information to incorporate some changes to help us flourish in this new season of life. So let's talk a little bit about processed foods. I am going to be looking at my notes just to make sure that I'm covering the things that I desire. But so what is a processed food? A processed food basically is any food that has been altered from its original form to hit your plate. So when talking about processed foods, we can be talking about anything from a chopped salad that's in a bag to things that are more processed like crackers and, jars of mayonnaise and jars of pasta sauce. Of course, today's conversation is not about bags of salad that have been chopped or carrots that have been pre-chopped and put into a bag. Yes, those are processed, but those are minimally processed. That is not the issue. Processed foods are altered, and some are altered to a higher degree, to extreme amounts and with lots of added chemicals in order to cause it to allow it to be preserved and available and have a long shelf life. And that's what we are talking about. Heavily processed foods are also sometimes referred to as ultra processed foods because they are chemically altered not only with artificial flavors, but they also have additives and lots of other ingredients that many of us probably don't recognize that are added to the foods. Most of the foods have been processed, especially here in the United States of America. And in fact, according to the data, let's see what it says. It says that here in the United States of America, more than half of our calories on average come from ultra processed foods. In Canada, the percentage is slightly lower at 48%. So here in the United States of America, that means that we have to ensure that we're putting intention, effort, and strategy into ensuring that we are not consuming ultra processed foods. Why? Why is it important to not consume ultra processed foods? Because there are health risks associated with them. And we're starting to get lots of more evidence and information with regard to the impact that processed foods are having on us, on our health, not only physically, but mentally, even emotionally, right? Cognitively, the impacts that processed foods can have. According to the American Institute for Cancer Research, processed foods do increase the risk for cancer. In addition to that, processed foods typically have excess amounts of sugar, sodium, and fat. And we're not talking about the healthy fats, we're talking about the unhealthy fats. And of course, we know that these lead to things such as high blood pressure, diabetes, etc., etc. In addition to that, highly processed foods generally lack nutritional value. So you're getting all of these excess calories and additives and chemicals, while at the same time you are being deprived of the nutritional benefit that should come in that food. Processed foods also tend to be highly calorie dense. So they tend to have very high calories, and they also tend to have addictive potential because of the chemicals, right? Our food industry is aware of the things that kind of trigger us to desire to come back to foods, and typically processed foods will have that potential to make us desire and crave and want to have that food over and over again, and in fact not even feel full until we've consumed like a whole box of the Little Debbies, and we still want more, right? Processed foods are quicker to digest, and while that might sound good, that's not necessarily to our benefit, because what that means is that if we are digesting it quickly, it also means that it's running through our system quickly, and we're needing to refuel and refill again and again. And then, of course, as I previously mentioned, processed foods tend to be full of artificial ingredients, etc. So one of the things that I like to kind of keep in mind is that we tend to eat the things that we have access to. And for me, as I approach the issue of food, I like to be careful to not shame people, make people feel as though they're doing something wrong, because the truth is we all need to eat. We all are doing the best that we can. And when we know better, we do better. I think, was it Maya Angelou who said, when we know better, we do better, but until then, we do the best that we can. Part of the process and part of the journey of life is learning and unlearning and exploring the things that work for us, allowing our values to develop, allowing ourselves to grow, and not to make people feel bad for things that they are consuming, because we're going to consume the things that are available to us. But certainly it's good to be aware. I know that for me personally, last year I decided to work on a journey towards my health with regard to my eating habits. And I wasn't desiring or intending to lose weight necessarily. That wasn't really one of my health goals. However, I had decided to make some changes, and one of those changes was to reduce my intake of processed foods, and that was based on some research that I had been doing and discovered some of the adverse health consequences associated with it. And on the way of implementing that and going through this healing journey, one of the things that I discovered was that some of the foods that I was consuming were highly processed, and I wasn't even aware. And I definitely started to notice some of the positive impacts of avoiding some of these foods. So here are a few of the processed foods that I decided to incorporate on my journey, and foods that should be avoided if you're desiring to decrease processed foods. 1, processed meat. So we're talking about sausage, pepperoni, bacon, luncheon meat, and deli meat. So like the ham, the sliced turkey, hot dogs, those types of things are highly processed foods and should be avoided. Number 2, bread. Don't come for me. Don't come for me. I know. I know bread. I know we love bread, and I am not going to sit here and act as if I don't eat bread. But one of the things that I did on my journey last year was I started to read the labels, and I started to be very intentional with regard to ensuring that the bread that I was going to consume was not highly processed. So there definitely are options. Not saying you have to completely give up bread. Depending on what your goals are, you may not have to. However, being aware of the ingredients that are in your bread in order to reduce some of the additives, chemicals, and other ingredients that you don't desire to have in your diet, definitely a way to do that is by looking or altering what types of bread you are consuming. Number 3, cheese and milk. So I admit that for me, I don't really consume a lot of cheese and milk, so this wasn't a huge one for me personally. But in my practice and in working with patients directly, this tends to be a big one. And I'm going to say specifically as it relates to a lot of the fad diets that have come up recently, like paleo and keto and all the various diets. I'm not someone who's necessarily an advocate of dieting for these reasons, but there's really no way to believe that one's health is going to improve by increasing the amount of processed food that they are consuming. There's just no way. Now, does that mean that you won't lose weight? You maybe will lose weight, but what is the ultimate goal? Is the goal just to lose weight, or is the goal to be healthy overall? Because if so, then definitely have to take a look at the consumption of processed food. Number 4, pasta and rice. I know this broke my heart. This literally broke my heart. Honestly, I am one of those people who enjoys my pasta. I enjoy my rice. But what I found was that the benefits outweighed the risks. I don't know if you want to say it. The pros outweighed the cons of limiting my intake of pasta and rice. I really do enjoy rice in particular. It's a big part of my diet. From the African culture, we eat a lot of rice. But truth is, some of the impacts that I was having, I only recognized after I decided to eliminate that, especially when it came to the distribution of my weight. Like I said, I wasn't really trying to lose weight per se, but I definitely was aware of the way that my body had decided to distribute its weight, and I did find that some of my belly fat started to go down when I reduced processed foods, including rice, in my diet. And number 5, the big one, is sugar and sugar substitutes specifically. Sugar substitutes, real big one that I like to bring up, just because as people are working on their health and trying to get healthier, trying to incorporate healthier diets, oftentimes what they're trying to do is decrease their caloric intake and decrease their sugar intake, and in turn people can start adding sugar substitutes. But it's really important to be cognizant and be cautious when adding sugar substitutes to one's diet, just because it is a chemical, it is a processed food. And with that being said, again, adding processed foods is not always the way to go, especially when we know that those things do contribute to adverse health consequences. With that being said, that is all that I have with regard to processed foods. A few things that I guess I'll just drop here at the end to help to reduce processed foods in our diets, of course, are going to be reading labels. I probably mentioned that a little too much, but I think it's so important. If you didn't see my last video on hidden sugars, I talk a little bit about that as it relates to sugar intake as well. So please be sure to watch that video. But it's important to read labels. I mean, our goal here is to learn and to unlearn and to be aware so that we're making healthy choices. Shopping mostly for whole foods, things that you recognize that they look like what they're supposed to be when you purchase them from the store. Opting to shop at the farmer's market is a good way to reduce your intake of processed foods. But also just cooking at home and trying to incorporate the transition slowly, because it does take some time, especially again here with our American diet, because processed foods are available in such abundance. It is not something that can be done easily or accidentally. There definitely has to be a lot of intention, focus, and discipline put into it. So definitely, despite that, it is achievable. I've definitely seen some impact as a result, and I suppose I can share more about that with you in another video, but that is all for now. Thank you for joining me. Please go ahead and like this video and leave a comment below. Tell me what things you are doing this year to be healthier, and please join me on the next video. Thank you, and bye for now.